Hey guys, Infidel 1258 here. Hope you're doing well. Today I am joined by special guest Cryptoeater, and we're going to be talking about the push and shove token, which is a meme coin that Cryptoeater has come up with in order to try and spark some excitement in this bull market moment. We've looked at things like, some of you are following Shiba Inu, some of you are following Doge, Pepe. Some of these coins are going wild, 300-400% in the last couple of weeks. And you go, why can't we participate? Some people think that. I've never been one for memes, but what Cryptoeater's been doing in this space, whether it's with the Qualis or recently buying SPS from Splinterlands, a team, and paying them in DEC, which is a thing that helps our community because they don't have to go to the marketplace. They do this one over-the-counter trade. And so it's like there's these different markers where I think Cryptoeater, you kind of represent a certain voice in this space that is, I think, constructive and positive. And so then that grabbed my attention, to be honest. I don't usually touch these types of tokens, but your involvement grabbed my attention in this. And when you reached out, I said, yeah, let's talk. I'd like to know more. And so today you're here to hang out and maybe answer some questions that I might have about this. But before we go into that, can I give you a minute to just even introduce yourself? Who are you? What's your involvement with the Qualis, with the team, and with this token? I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for having me on here. It is a great pleasure. And yes, as Infidel mentioned, I'm Cryptoeater. I've been involved in the community for more or less since the start of the game, back in May 2018, so almost 6 years ago now. Since then, I've been more or less of an advisor, just talking to Matt about small things here and there, but very recently I became an official team member. I've been helping out with pretty much all aspects of the game, but my main role now is to help out with Lands 2.0, especially regarding the tokenomics side of things. So Matt comes up with the grand scheme of things, like, oh, this is what he wants, and then I say, okay, these are the numbers to go with that. So that's kind of the dynamic we have at the moment, which I'm really enjoying. As Infidel's mentioned, I'm also the founder of Qualis DAO. We have a bit of involvement in Splinterlands with our own Qualis market, our own Qualis guild. But ultimately, we are a DeFi protocol, and this is also kind of aimed to get a larger audience involved in Splinterlands, and also using some of the initial Splinterlands community to power our DeFi protocol. So, I hope that's a good enough introduction.
It is, yeah. I do have more questions about Qualis, but really I want to focus today on the push and shove token and kind of this moment. There's something special happening right now. I think for a few more days, there's bonus opportunity. So maybe just start us off with, what is this token? What is this, what are you doing with this? And maybe what's the goal of the project?
Yeah. So the ultimate goal of this project is definitely to bring the Splinterlands ecosystem to a wider audience. So we've always had trouble with marketing, let's be honest. We've had a marketing team before, but I don't think anyone has been particularly pleased. For example, the whole getting a rapper to do a promo card, the Imagine Dragons video, I don't think that those have actually brought any new users onto our platform at all, which is why I thought it's good to get back to kind of the grassroots, like Web3 marketing, rather than trying to go very traditional marketing, if that makes sense, because that's not the target audience we're looking for. We're looking for people who are already educated in how to use Web3 wallets, how to manage their own keys, how things like MetaMask, DEXs, all of these things work, which is pretty much the meme coin community, as that's a small subset. So ultimately, we wanted to use the organic nature of the Splinterlands community, which is really what a meme coin is. It's just often a cult-like community that just buys a coin and just kind of I guess people call working for their own bags. People buy the coin, people will start promoting it themselves on Twitter. People see these coins mentioned over and over again. And maybe on the 10th time they see it, they might get intrigued and say, okay, fine, let's see what that actually is. And that's the kind of effect that I'm hoping that we can bring to push and shove. That's what I'm hoping the community can kind of bring to it, which is why as many aspects of the token I can think of is basically beneficial to Splinterlands. So the whole ideology is that by supporting the token, you're basically supporting the marketing efforts of Splinterlands. This is both in terms of organically, more eyes on Splinterlands the better, but also in terms of the actual token itself, right? Like SPS and DEC. Every time someone buys push token, technically they're actually going through, the majority of their capital actually goes through SPS. A little bit goes through DEC and a little bit goes through E. And that essentially means that as the push token goes up in price, more and more SPS, DC, and Ethereum is basically locked in our liquidity pools, which benefits the whole ecosystem. And the reason we have a bit of Ethereum is because I'm personally bullish on it, and having more liquidity pools when the price of, let's say, SPS and Ethereum changes, that actually sparks arbitrage opportunities, which basically just means that even if no one is buying or selling, we're going to get a little bit of volume, which basically helps with our burning mechanisms. Yeah, I hope that's a so a bit longer than a summary.
There are several pieces in there that I feel like we could run down. But one thing I want to touch on straight away is I do agree with like almost this, it's like a thesis statement you're making, which is that, attention, commitment, eyeballs, player base, that those things grow for a game like Splinterlands when we genuinely capture the interest of communities. And when we look at our prior initiatives, you mentioned Waka and I forget the other one, but even you didn't mention, and I was thinking today, Ali Straza, like that partnership, it didn't seem to really drive any meaningful growth. Not that I could discern anyways, maybe I'm mistaken about that. And if I'm wrong and somebody pointed you, if you, one of those three campaigns worked for somebody watching this video, I would love to see in the comment section that that's the case, because it strikes me that you're right, Cryptoeater, that they weren't largely successful. And so it's like, well, if that advertising doesn't work, if throwing money at these things just doesn't solve that problem of drawing connections and eyeballs to our game, which I think everyone here wants, and you having been here for 6 years definitely want. I go, how do we get them? How do we do that? And it does make sense that, something where it's more grassroots is going to be that play or that opportunity. And that's what we've seen with YouTube and Twitch and with the content creation space. Like I've been here covering the game for about 3 years, I think. I forget now, to be honest, but I've been playing for 5 years. And it's been awesome to see the commitment and growth of the channel, which is to me almost it mirrors the commitment and growth to the game. Not saying everybody who plays watches me, but definitely saying that growth happens alongside the growth within, for instance, YouTube. So I think the more we drive up communities and let communities get them excited to sort of speak about the thing that they're passionate about, that's actually the path to having that effect. So then how does push token create an opportunity for, let's say, I saw there was over 1 million SPS that were sent into your sacrifice round. Where, first of all, how many SPS are currently in the sacrifice round or whatever? And then secondly, how many users does that represent? Because we're talking about like a grassroots movement of people that are going to be excited to talk about this, that will drive eyeballs. If that's the case, are we talking hundreds of people or dozens of people? Like, what does that look like exactly? Do you have an idea about that?
Yeah. So just touching on the whole Ali Straza side of things. So I actually forgot about that, but I think that is on the right track. It's someone that is in the TCG business. It's someone that has a pretty decent community who are all very loyal followers. Back when I played Hearthstone a fair bit, I've seen Ali around. So yeah, I think that was definitely the right track. I don't know how much cost was involved, and in terms of effectiveness, I think it definitely needs to be kind of like an all-out push, not just one streamer, but multiple streamers, because otherwise it's just people who might not be interested in Splinterlands would just say, I'm going to go watch, I don't know, Disguised Toast instead. So, I thought it needed to definitely be like a bigger effort rather than just trying to dip your toes in the water, but I thought it was in the right track. Moving on to your question about, what's it actually looking like right now? How's the sacrifice round going? First of all, yes, so we do have a bonus. So throughout the whole sacrifice round, there's a bonus, but the bonus goes down by 1% every day. So of course, the sooner you contribute your sacrifice round funds, the higher the bonus you get. So I think if you scroll down a little bit more on the page, so the bonus sacrifice points here, you can see that we're on approximately the 9th of March, so you get 3% at the moment, and then on the very last day you get no bonus, and then after that you can't send funds into the sacrifice round anymore. However, you can still actually buy the token when the token comes out on BSC, which is currently undecided. We'll give a 3-day notice at the very least before we actually add the LP and start trading on all that. Okay. But yeah, so that's currently the bonus sacrifice points. In terms of how many people, the last time I did a leaderboard update, we had 91, I think. Let me double check. Yeah, we had 91 unique wallets. And I'm not sure if that's actually 91 unique people, but I don't really see any reason why someone would use 2 wallets when you can get a bonus points for being a top 5 contributor.
Yep.
Sorry, it says 87 here, so I guess it's 87 wallets. I think 91 might be a more recent version.
Okay.
But yeah, we have, I'd say almost 100, if not 100 by now, since this was done a day ago. In terms of how much SPS we've actually received, last time I checked was around 1.6 million, with our biggest contributor being Yabat Matt, who put in 150k yesterday.
Cool.
So that was very exciting to see. I actually told him about this idea before it all launched, and he was like, this doesn't, the meme coins, nah, I don't think this is gonna work. He didn't say it's not going to work. He just said that it's not really his cup of tea.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's fine. That's all good. And I spoke to him about it again, and then he actually read through the docs, and I guess he thought it was actually quite intriguing. And given how much community support there already was, he was like, I guess I'll put a little bit in. The thing he kept asking me was, what's number 1 ranked right now? And I told him how many points number 1 was. He was like, okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask one more probing question there. So the people who are interested in sort of participating in a meme token, they want to get excited within another element of cryptocurrency that is, at least tangentially connected to Splinterlands. Push and shove. Why push and shove? What does that word even come from? For some, not everybody's going to recognize it. What's this image? Why the word push? Like, what is it? Where does that all come from?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I've wanted to make a Splinterlands meme coin for actually probably more than half a year now. I've always thought that the combination of community that we have now, plus the fact that most of us are pretty well versed with using like PancakeSwap and like MetaMask and all that, makes a great kind of source for a great meme coin. But I just never thought of a name. Push and Shove was the first name I thought of probably half a year ago, and I just never thought of anything better.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Push and Shove, for those who don't know, is something very famous, coined by our beloved ex-CEO, Agrode. He would come into our Discord all the time saying there is not enough SPS, there is not enough packs. And yeah, he would use the exact words push and shove over and over again. I think it's been said over 600 times in our Discord before I actually even started this coin.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a bit of a little community thing that I think we've all seen a lot. Well, most of us have, at least.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why this coin is named that. And a little bit of like a side note. A lot of people may also have bought SPS, may have also gotten it, because this was said a lot during the 2021 bull run. So we're hoping that people who may have listened to those exact words and gotten burnt can have a bit of solace in knowing that hopefully this coin will do well. Hopefully they don't get burned again.
So then let's talk a little bit about like getting burned or not getting burned, prices and whatnot. We talked a little bit before we started recording that you also did a video with Aftersound, and that was a great video, guys. You should go watch it. You know, it was almost, I think it might have been an hour-long conversation. I enjoyed the whole conversation. In there, you did talk with him about a bit about the tokenomics and a bit about how push can be exchanged, and you know how the liquidity pools will work. I had questions around how it sounded as though one push token can be exchanged for one SPS token, but I don't believe that's that. I think I misunderstood that. First, let's get that. Help me get that straight. First off, is it going to carry its own value? Is it supposed to be pegged to SPS? How is price discovery going to work with push?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So it's actually there's a lot of different relationships that actually work within these liquidity pools, given that we have a lot of different pairs with push. So the majority of the liquidity for push will be added with SPS. What this essentially means is that it will be traded against SPS. So in a world where there is no buys and sells, the price of SPS will actually dictate the price of push. When someone buys push tokens, what they're actually doing is they're essentially buying SPS, and then the SPS is then turned into push, then the SPS then goes into our liquidity pools. That's assuming they buy it with like a stable coin or BNB or something like that. If a user already has SPS and they buy push, what happens is that it essentially, the SPS that they have goes into our liquidity pools, and then they get push in return. So that's actually one of the mechanisms that we've designed around making sure that there's not much sell pressure on SPS because of push. People are always concerned about, like, actually, if this is a new asset class, won't people sell SPS? Or, you know, if people are selling SPS to buy push, you know, doesn't that actually devalue SPS? Well, the answer is not really, because when they're selling SPS, it doesn't like get sold on the market per se. It gets locked into our liquidity pool that's paired against SPS, like push against SPS. Of course, SPS isn't the only liquidity pool we're going to have. We're going to have a small portion in DEC and a small portion on ETH. What that essentially means is that when you're buying push, it's also supported partially by DEC and ETH, but it's also giving utility to these tokens. The price, or I should say the circulation of these tokens are going down as more and more push is being bought. Because how a liquidity pool works is essentially you're trading one token for the other. If one token goes down, another one has to go up.
Yes.
So if the price of push tokens are going up, by definition, that means people are buying it. And by definition, that means there's less and less in the liquidity pool. And then, of course, by definition, the amount of SPS in the liquidity pools is going higher and higher. We also have other kind of like gamification features that include burning push and also adding SPS into the liquidity pool. This basically just means that there should be less and less push tokens in circulation overall, and more SPS goes into our liquidity pools over time. So these are just kind of like extra gamification features that help to increase the price of push while also locking up more and more SPS.
So let me ask a question there. You said at the beginning, you said that when people are acquiring push, when they're buying it, they're sending in SPS. Like I think you can send in Ethereum, you can send in DEC, but one of the main ways will be through, I think, sending in the SPS. And if that's the case, are we saying that like when I send in one SPS, I get one push, and therefore push in some sense when I do that, I'm saying push is worth 2.8 cents because the SPS is 2.8 cents. Like I'm making that choice. Is that how you're saying that the price will be tied, or did I misunderstand some element there?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And yeah, you did mention that before, but I forgot to go over that. It's more about the ratio. So it's not an actual peg like 1-to-1. Okay. It's more like, so I'll give you an example. Okay. Right now, during the sacrifice round, there's a total of 900 million push tokens being distributed. And that's going to be distributed based on people's sacrifice points. It's going to be prorated. So let's say if you put in 500 SPS right now, you're going to get approximately a bit over 500 sacrifice points to the bonus, but you'll actually get approximately, the last time I checked, you'd probably get 260,000 push tokens in return. So if we do some quick maths, that's a 500 to 266,000 ratio, which roughly brings it to what, 1 to 500, give or take. So every SPS, you should expect 500 push tokens right now.
Okay.
Over time, we are hoping, of course, the ratio between these tokens change. I guess hoping that push tokens go up with respect to SPS. What happens then is more and more SPS gets locked in our liquidity pool if the ratio between push and SPS changes. So if more SPS gets locked in the liquidity pool, obviously there's less SPS in circulation, and the hopes is that SPS goes up as well. So people who are holding push tokens will then get a kind of double benefit, I guess. The ratio goes up and then the base asset goes up, so you're getting double the appreciation. Of course, these are all kind of like gamification features that we can't really guarantee will happen. This is all like an experiment. But that's kind of the idea behind it, or the thought process behind it.
Yeah, because when SPS is being sent in, it's being locked up in the liquidity pools, which is in some senses like it's not like it's at least it's like the same way DEC is put into land at land 1.5. It's like put into land. It's no longer being spent on the marketplace. It's locked up to some extent. But then also I think you talked about like that's a wallet. You know what? I think I'm getting confused because there's really two areas of SPS. There's the sacrifice wallet where all of the SPS is being sent right now during sacrifice round in order to receive some portion of the push that's available. But then there's separately going to be these liquidity pool wallets. Correct, right? Okay. And so, however many, you said 1.6 million SPS has been sent into the sacrifice so far, and we have a few more days to go. And that's gonna create like a certain amount of distribution for the 900 million that is coming through sacrifice. But then separately, there'll be 1.8 billion that's available through liquidity pools. And theoretically, people will want to participate in liquidity pools for APR. And so they'll move in SPS as well. They'll buy push because they want to participate in liquidity pools. They'll send push and SPS into the liquidity pools, locking it up.
So let me just interrupt you there.
Please do.
So there won't actually, when the user actually buys the push tokens, they're not expected to actually do anything with it. Like, they don't have to participate in the liquidity pools. The liquidity pool is basically planned to be, at least, purely driven by the actual push token wallet. So this is basically what we call kind of like a fair launch protocol, right? Which basically means that there's no vesting periods, there's no team fair launch has team allocation sometimes, but in this case we don't. And the main idea is that 100% of the tokens are in circulation from day one.
Okay.
Being in liquidity pool, that basically means it's circulating. So, I guess the misconception here is that users don't actually have to provide liquidity, right? That's not the purpose of this liquidity pool.
Okay.
They don't get any incentives. They don't get any APR from providing liquidity pool.
Okay.
What this is basically is, imagine it like if the SPS DAO was like, okay, here's 900 million SPS, and then we have 1.8 billion tokens that we are going to provide in the liquidity pool. That is essentially what's happening here. So the push token itself is actually providing the liquidity. Okay. So given that there's, to provide liquidity, right, we're doing it on PCS v3, like PancakeSwap v3. This is another, I guess this could go down probably another half an hour video, but I'll just quickly explain v3. So v3 allows us to add liquidity at certain ranges. What this means is that we don't need a 50-50 split. What we used to have to do, and this is with every Splinterlands pool, if any of you guys provide liquidity on Splinterlands pools, you're actually using v2. Okay. What v2 does is you have to have 50% of your assets in the base and then 50% in the quote. So if you're providing $100 worth of liquidity for DEC, you're going to need 100 USDC, give or take, to actually provide liquidity. However, in v3, what you can do is you can say, actually, I want to provide liquidity between these ranges, and therefore it will actually dictate, and the ranges will actually dictate the portion. So as Dwayne's highlighted here, 50 million push tokens at the price between 200 to 400%. What this means is that it's actually out of the current range. If the token is out of the current range, it's almost like setting up like a sell order between 200 to 400%. So people who want to buy the token can buy the token at these prices. Yeah. That's why, I think I've spoken about this a little bit on Aftersound, yes, and also on Discord, is that we need to get as much momentum and hype as possible between the sacrifice round to the launch. Because if there's no momentum, right, no one's going to buy the token when it launches. And the whole point is that people buy the tokens. You can sell the tokens as well, of course, but we need to create that kind of like volume and that volatility. But anyway, so once we actually get to the launch time, people want to buy the tokens, right? And these tokens are essentially coming out of the liquidity pool. So we start off with 1.8 billion tokens in the liquidity pool. If, let's say, some random person that's never heard of Splinterlands before comes and wants to buy tokens, it actually comes out of the liquidity pool. So more and more comes into the actual like ownership of users, yes, and less of it is in the liquidity pool. So that's kind of how it works there. And yeah, that's why there's such a big allocation for the liquidity pool. Sorry, I don't know if that's actually answering your question.
I think, I mean, it's clarifying some points on how because I was thinking of it from like the version 2 standpoint, where I have to put push and SPS in, and you're saying no, if you wanted to, that's not how the push is coming from this 1.8 million that's set aside, correct?
Yeah. So yeah, basically, like, I guess the main takeaway is just that the users aren't expected to add liquidity. Of course, it's their tokens; they can add liquidity if they want. But the idea is that users aren't expected to do that. They can simply hold their tokens, and that is basically, that's basically supporting the token as much as you can. It's just holding it, and then spreading the word around on social media, etc. Of course, but in terms of what you actually want to do with the token, nothing more than just holding it is required.
So then I have a question around like price appreciation, because if we talk about how like this 1.8 million is created at launch, but it's in the liquidity pools, and when people when they want to buy it, they are getting it from this selection of push. Yeah. Then in some sense, it's not minting new push, but it is now making more push out in the marketplace, in the sense of like, correct, now John or Jane, they've got some now, and whereas it used to be locked up in that LP, and in some sense that's a demand, but it's also now an excess supply. And I'm just wrestling in my own mind, like, what's that going to do price wise? It feels like it's going to satisfy the need for there's a demand, but then it gets immediately satisfied. I wonder, how do you see this being, like, apart from, being a ton of people coming forward and just this being grassroots excitement, like, what is I'm not sure I'm seeing the piece that makes people want to like buy or hold. I did hear you talk about burning mechanisms with it. Maybe I need to know more about that.
Yeah, so that's a great question as well, actually. This is where it kind of differs between traditional order books and more like DeFi side of things. Okay. So when most people are familiar with order books, right? Let's say you put an order for Bitcoin at 69,000. If the price is currently 68,000, you might put a sell order at 69,000, or you might put a buy order at 67,000. And then if there's another person on the other side who wants to sell or who wants to buy, your order gets filled. However, what happens with an automated market maker, in this case, we're using PancakeSwap as our AMM. Yep. We actually provide we provide demand and supply for the token as the actual, token deployers. So once it's deployed out there, we add the liquidity, and once we add the liquidity, that's both the demand and the supply. The good thing about this is that it's essentially telegraphed. If you put a Bitcoin buy order up, you can actually remove that as well, right? So the demand is there one day and the demand might not be there the second day. And then it also means that, let's say that if Bitcoin is $69,000 right now, and then all of a sudden everybody removes all of their buy orders, and then one person puts up a buy order at $1, and then somebody sells $1 worth of Bitcoin at $1. I guess, if someone sells one Bitcoin at $1, that basically means, okay, the new price of Bitcoin is now $1, and the total amount transacted is only literally $1 worth. And that's, I guess, a problem with traditional order books. Whereas with this kind of automated market maker, or AMM, that's like the demand and the supply is all in there. So when you gave an example before of, okay, let's say if somebody wants to buy a token, okay, they'll get the token, but then it's like that token comes out of the liquidity pool, and that's an extra supply, right? Well, that's technically true, but we also have to consider that when someone buys, the only way for them to buy is through the liquidity pool, and when someone buys in the liquidity pool, the price has to go up. And then, of course, when someone sells, the price has to go down. So that's kind of the mechanism we're using here, is that we think about it a different way. We think about it as, if there's demand, the price has to go up, right? It's not like a traditional order book where even if there's demand, well, if there's one guy who just wants to sell his coins, he can just put a massive sell order. You have to go through the AMM.
I think I'm tracking with you. It's like, you know, as people, I think I'm like one step away from fully getting it. Help me understand the move between these different tiers. Like how do we get, like, are we saying that when 100 million push tokens are bought, that process is going to translate to price appreciation on the token? You said when somebody buys one, the price has to go up, and when somebody sells, it has to go down. So is that what you're saying here?
Yeah, essentially. So we have and also you've touched on the thing before that you mentioned, that the price can never reach zero. That's also part of, like, I guess, the magic of AMMs. We are providing liquidity pools in, I don't know, like 7 or 8 different types of ranges. Maybe just looking at the picture there, but there's a lot. And some of that range comes at the infinite spectrum. What basically that means is that the price goes from 0 to infinity. And when we add liquidity between those ranges, it follows the PancakeSwap v2 formula. And that formula basically means the token price can actually never go to 0. How that works is every time you sell the token, the price goes down. But there's not enough tokens for it to get to 0. It'll always go down by a certain percentage. And even if it starts at $1 and then goes down by 99% 1,000 times, technically it's still like 0.0000001 or whatever it is, right? And that's kind of what I was talking about before on Aftersounds, is that, well, technically it can never go to 0. The only way that's possible is, of course, if, let's say, that there's a bad actor like myself. If I remove the liquidity, that's the only way the token can go to 0. But unless that happens, it's literally impossible for it to go to 0. Of course, that doesn't mean you can't make a loss. If you buy and then someone else sells, well, instantly you're at a loss. Especially because there's 1% fees on these pools. So if you buy, you're actually paying a 1% fee, and then if you sell, you're paying another 1% fee. So these are all just, I guess, considerations there. When you said before, does it cost, if someone buys 50 million tokens, does the price increase from 200 to 400%? Well, essentially, yes. It's not exactly 50 million though, because we have, I guess, 2 layers of pools. One layer is the infinite range pools, so you need to go through that layer, and the second layer is the the extra liquidity that's added at certain ranges. So if the price reaches 200%, then between 200% to 400%, you should think about it as there's an extra 50 million coins that need to be bought before the price reaches 400% of the launch price.
Gotcha.
And then if it reaches 400%, it can reach 500% extremely fast because there's no extra liquidity there. It basically, you just have to go through the infinite liquidity pools to actually push the price from 400 to 500%. But then it's like, okay, once we get to 500%, there's a lot of liquidity there again. So it's going to take a lot of buys to get from 500 to 800. And the idea there is that people will have these kind of like this knowledge. Everyone has access to this information, and with this information, the idea is that it incentivizes a bit of like a more gamification process. For example, if it reaches 400%, people might think, oh, it's going to be very easy to reach 500%, so I'm going to buy tokens now and then sell it when it reaches 500%. That could be one train of thought. And then people, when it reaches 500, they could think, oh, there's a lot of resistance between 500 to 800, so I'm going to sell it at 500% now, which then pushes the price back down towards the 400% mark, which is where people are saying, oh, this is where it's going to go up. So it's kind of like that.
Interesting. Yep.
Yeah, it's meant to be kind of like a game. Like the actual trading is meant to be a game, and through the process of playing that game, we, as the protocol deployer, we get trading fees. So every time someone does a buy, every time someone does a sell, there's trading fees associated with it, and we get a portion. I think 70-something% of those trading fees come to us. 20-something% goes to PancakeSwap. And with those trading fees, if you scroll down a bit more, it actually says what those trading fees are used for. So yeah, here 100% of push tokens will be earned. So any time someone sells push, we get push tokens as I guess a liquidity pool providing reward. So 100% of that is sold. 100% of that is burned. So every time someone sells push, they're actually contributing to burning push tokens. So the idea there is that people get a bit of like a bittersweet feeling. If you see a massive red candle, it means that somebody sold a lot. It means that push tokens are now worth less. However, it also means that the supply has decreased, making it easier to go up again, if that makes sense. If there's less supply, equivalent demand, the price has to go increase.
Interesting.
And then the SPS side, basically, when people buy push tokens, the majority of that goes into SPS. And then what we get in return is, of course, SPS as part of the trading fee. So every time someone buys push tokens, we get SPS. And then that SPS is then added back into the liquidity pool. So next time someone sells, it's harder for the liquidity pool to move down. I think the example I gave in After Sounds video is, let's say, it takes 50 million SPS to move it from 200 to 400%, but then there's a lot of trading that happens around that time. And then when it actually needs to go down, what will happen is that it might take 51 million tokens for it to go from 400 to 200% again, if that makes sense. So
it does, yeah.
It took 1 million token more to actually move the price back. So
I think it's a really important point.
Sorry?
I think it's a really important point that I guess I just want you to maybe make sure we hammer home, because what you're arguing is that it's going to be, even as we grow, as we ascend through various levels, because of the fees and how that feeds value into especially through SPS, it's going to make it more and more difficult to descend from higher levels. Correct?
That's exactly correct. So this works in two ways. The first way is that there's more liquidity at lower levels, and that essentially means you need to sell more to actually reach the lower levels. And on top of that, there's token burning, which means that there's less tokens available to be sold. With this, so this is something that I haven't actually really talked about before, because it's something that I'm still trying to explore myself, is that I've realized that technically there is a floor price for these tokens. And that's basically, at the start, there's 900 million in circulation, 1.8 billion in liquidity pool. So if, let's assume that all 900 million tokens are sold right now, what would the final price of the last token sold be? And that's essentially the floor price. It's going to be something ridiculously low, probably like 99.9% below the current price. But basically that will continuously go up over time. So every time someone makes a buy or a sell, the floor price of this token will actually increase. And that's just something that I thought was kind of interesting. And something like I kind of like realized that we can actually calculate this once we start trading. Because I'll be honest, this, as I mentioned several times, this is all an experiment. I don't actually know how this will look. I don't actually know. I haven't actually done too many simulations on how much tokens will need to be bought, for example, for it to increase by a certain price. All of these are all kind of like part of the fun, I guess. And as we grow as a community, I'm sure we'll have lots of changes. For example, we might have a community proposal like, let's remove the liquidity between 200 and 400%, and let's stake that instead and use the staking rewards to buy back and burn, because the community is like, okay, we're at 2,000% above launch price now, and I really don't think that the token price is ever going to fall below 400%. If the community believes that, then we can make a proposal and we can move that SPS from the liquidity pool where it's essentially sitting idle, and then we can start earning SPS rewards on that. But then, of course, the flip side as well, that's actually removing, that's actually reducing the floor price again, and then that's also putting SPS back into circulation essentially, because when it's staked, it's basically stealing rewards from all the other stages. There's pros and cons for all of these. It's just an example that I gave. But yeah, the thing I wanted to emphasize is that since it's an experiment, I do expect things will change, and it will be based on the community. And the reason I've put 4 DeFi nerds in brackets is that I don't expect everyone to actually understand all of this. I'll be honest, I don't understand how all of the relationships work together as well. For example, we have 3 pools for push, but then we also have multiple pools for SPS. So technically, whenever somebody buys DEC on Hive, that actually has an effect on push price as well. By the transitive relationships of all the liquidity pools, every transaction has an effect on everything else. If somebody buys $20,000 worth of Ethereum on Coinbase, that actually has an effect on DEC, SPS, and push tokens. Given Ethereum's a very large market cap, $20,000 isn't really going to move the price of Ethereum, which means it's going to have like a negligible effect, but it has an effect nonetheless. And that's what I kind of find quite fascinating with a lot of these things. Yeah,
that's really cool. I have a great deal of interest because of the way you describe sort of the unlikelihood of going to zero based on increased, first of all, burned mechanisms for push, but also increased value within the wallets associated from fees, and then this like almost tier-based but like expected or predictable growth plan. All that to me seems pretty exciting to the point where like I'm interested, but I do have reservations that I want to, I guess, run by you and hear some thoughts, because probably I'm not the only one. But before I go there, I need to so I do want to ask maybe some skepticism, but before I do that, I wanted to ask a couple of key questions. You talked about the trading fees that were accumulated, and I was wondering, are those ending up in the sacrifice wallet? Because that sacrifice wallet is still value that the game, or like I'm calling this a game, but that you, I guess, currently will hold sort of control over. There's a plan for how that'll be handled in the future, I think, but will all fees kind of end up in that wallet, first of all?
Yeah, so great question. The fees accumulated from the liquidity pools will only end up on the BSC wallet, since that we don't have a trading pair on Hive yet. We may in the future. We're still trying to figure out how that would work with the least possible overheads like bridging costs, but also making sure that the two tokens have some sort of communication. But anyway, that's probably something for a fair bit after we launch, when we have some more funds for development. In terms of where the fees actually end up, yes, correct. So there's one token, there's what we call the push main wallet. That is currently, I hold the keys for that on my ledger. All of the tokens that's put into the sacrifice round essentially goes to that wallet on BSC. Even everything on Hive will eventually move to that BSC wallet. And then the liquidity pool tokens are added on there. As you mentioned before, we do have a plan to basically try to decentralize that. I don't want the responsibility of having the keys, like holding the keys to that. And I don't want it to be some kind of centralized project where like I'm the dev or I'm the team or something. I kind of want to be part of the community. And part of that reason is I don't know how much time and how much I can commit in terms of time. I've already put in a lot more time than I was expecting to, let's be honest. I didn't think that this would get as big as it is. like we were planning for a 30-day sacrifice round with a minimum of 500k SPS, and we're like, if it doesn't reach 500k, we'll just abandon the whole thing, and then just refund everyone. But then, given how much support we had, we actually changed it to a 10-day because everyone's like, oh, let's launch faster, let's launch sooner. So I'm like, okay, let's do a 10-day then. And we reached 500k, I think, on our first day. I put in 100k myself, AJ put in 100k, Michael B put in like 70 something k, all within the first like few minutes. And bam, we were already more than halfway there within like a couple minutes, which was amazing to see. But at the same time, I would ultimately like to make sure that this is a community project. That's what I've been calling it, and I want to make sure that that's what it looks like, that's what it feels like. I don't want there just to be me holding keys. I would like to have trusted community members. Off the top of my head, people like Clay, people like Yabat Matt. It would be great to have those people on board, but then at the same time, we need to have a difference between kind of like a key holder and operations. Because we'll need people who are basically approving every transaction. They'll need to be basically here every day to be able to do stuff. And then we'll have other people who are just kind of emergency backups, who can approve stuff if needed, but we don't need them for every transaction. I was hoping we would have maybe 5 or 6 people in total, with a minimum of 3 people per transaction. That's kind of what I have in mind at this stage. But we'll definitely need to set all of that up eventually, just to make sure there's no funny business going on. I think that's like the probably the sole place of probably concern from people's perspective. It'd be like, yeah, okay, it sounds fun, it even sounds like promising, but like we're theoretically putting SPS into it. And now I know it's only 1.6 million right now, which is what, 45,000 or 40,000, who knows, something like, it's not crazy money, but man, if SPS goes through a bull market, like suddenly it gets like, it's a big wallet. And just knowing that there's like a plan for like oversight around that, I think is going to be one of the places that I think, and there's already a Discord for your community, right? And I joined it. I haven't really been active in there, but this is, I presume there'll be a place and an opportunity. There's general suggestions right there. Okay. For ongoing conversation of it. 422 members participating in the Push and Shove Discord. Okay, 4 of them bots. Okay, so 418. I guess my lingering questions are two things. You talked about how you are the buyer and the seller through the AMM, and that's traditionally, like with the market, if there is zero demand, then the token goes to zero. Meaning, like, if I have like Dwayne token and nobody wants Dwayne token, then it's worth $0. But in this context, what I'm hearing you say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like you are not you, but the MM is the buyer and the seller. And so there's an opportunity to sell to the MM to buy everybody who's holding push, correct? That's correct. So I guess the common misconception here is that everyone's going to make money. That's not true. The correct way of thinking about this is your money will never go to zero. It might go to 1 cent, which is essentially worthless. But it'll never technically reach zero. Because, as you mentioned, yes, the MM will always be there to buy tokens, and that's what the sacrifice round is actually for. 70% of the SPS that has been sent into the sacrifice wallets, that will actually be used to basically fund the basis of the MM. When people sell, the 700,000 SPS, the 70% SPS from the sacrifice round, that's what's going to be buying your push tokens when you sell. And when you actually buy push tokens, once it launches on the secondary markets, the 1.8 billion, that's where you're buying from. And just like how the just like how push tokens can never technically reach zero, you can never, the MM can never run out of push tokens. It might get to a point where there's only 1 push token left in liquidity pool, but that last push token is going to be worth trillions of dollars or something. And then let's say someone actually spends trillions of dollars. Well, you're only going to get half the token. That's just how it works. And then the last half token, it might be worth $1 quadrillion. It's just like that's kind of how the MM works, is that you're never going to run out of tokens on either side, which is why these like infinite spectrum liquidity pools are so important to have. But then on top of that, we've added the fixed price liquidity pools as well, between 200 and 400%, for example. And that's just like added gamification, I guess. That's just part of the fun of trading push. Yeah.
Well, I think that answers like my questions. I think I need to like get my head a little bit more around, like I don't fully understand the idea of infinite range, but I am following you that like essentially they're like, as more and more tokens are getting added, which is more and more interest, or not, that's driving prices. And then there's this gamification at different tiers. And that to me sounds interesting and worth a little bit of my attention. I'm definitely going to send a little SPS over to the sacrifice round, which maybe we could spend just a minute or two, unless there's something really pressing that you feel we overlooked that you'd love to talk on. I'd love to give you that space, but I ultimately would just even love for it to take 1 or 2 minutes to point people in the right direction for how they would participate if they want to participate. Because there are 2 methods, correct?
Correct. Yeah, you can do it on Hive Engine or BSC, just whichever is more convenient for you. And yeah, I mean, I guess the most pressing matter is that I feel like with a lot of these, like everyone's very, at the moment at least, everyone seems to be very concerned around the whole like DeFi liquidity pool side of things, which honestly I am also very interested in. It's kind of what I'm passionate about. However, I kind of want to emphasize that people don't have to actually understand all of that to really get involved in this. It's literally as simple as, you mentioned that, while the sacrifice is on, you can sacrifice tokens and you're part of it. If people are watching this when the sacrifice round is over, all you have to do is go on BSC, or go on PancakeSwap, and then you can just buy our tokens on PancakeSwap. I'm sure there'll be a tutorial for that somewhere when the time comes. But yeah, it's the whole idea behind it is that you can have 2 kind of interaction methods. You can just basically buy the token, close your eyes and see what happens, and then just kind of trust the process, I guess, or you can really understand these liquidity pools. Yeah. But for people to actually trust the process, we need to make sure that there are community leaders like yourself, like other content creators, or like Clay, who's, I don't know what his title is, like manager of the DAO or something, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But basically having trusted people saying that, yes, this is actually beneficial for the community, I think that's what's important, and that's how we as a community can bring this token to a new level. And then by the time we get to a new level, that's when all of these meme coin people, these like DeFi nerds and all of these other people from outside the community are going to come in. And that's when I expect we'll be getting a lot of questions like, okay, how does this work? They should honestly probably already know most of the stuff about the DeFi side. And then when they read the docs, they might see new stuff like these tiered liquidity, because I've never seen this anywhere else. I'll be honest, this is very new. I think like we might be the first token in the world to be doing something like this, maybe. But yeah, these are kind of the things that I want to focus on right now. Is that, okay, how is this token beneficial for the community? How is this token going to bring Splinterlands to a new audience? And then the DeFi side is kind of like a, I guess that is part of the how, but I guess the main thing is like the benefits and the exposure, if that makes sense. I think that's pretty much what I wanted to just get off the top of my head. And in terms of how to participate, so if you go back to the Discord, I highly recommend everyone, join our Discord. It's a great little community here. We're getting more and more activity, which is great. And then if you just go to the important, you do how to buy.
Important how to buy. First of all, help me create a link, because I'll drop a link in this video chat. How do they join the Discord?
Yeah, so if you want people to join the Discord through your link, you'll just have to press the, so next to any channel really, if you just hover over the channel, there's a little button that says, there's a little like plus button. If you hover over it, it says create invite. Yep.
Maybe I'll send,
and then once you create
I'll create invite for the how to buy, because people will wonder. and then I go edit.
Yeah. So edit invite link and just make sure that it expires never, and then click generate a new link, and then you'll have a new link there. And then if you share that link, every time someone clicks on that link and they come into the Discord, it will basically get credited to you.
Cool.
However, we have found that the first time someone joins, it seems to not work for some reason. Like, it'll just say, can't figure out where this person came from.
Sure.
So make sure you use the same link everywhere, because if you use a new link every time, you're basically going to get no invites, because all of your links won't work.
Understood. So, and then here within the how to buy channel, we see a Hive Engine tutorial and a BSC tutorial. I've looked at these before. The big distinction, correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you're using Hive, if you're using Hive Engine to send SPS, you need to make sure you have that memo. Is that the big distinction?
Yes, absolutely. Because since this is a token on BSC, we'll need to distribute it to your BSC wallet. If you don't tell us your BSC wallet, well, we have no way of actually distributing it to you. So the best we can do is refund your SPS and tell you via a memo, please, give us a BSC memo, and then for that we'll deduct 500 SPS, and that will go back to buying back and burning push token once we launch. And that's purely because we want to make sure that there's as little overhead or extra overheads for us as possible, because every time we do that, of course, it takes time. We have to scan through the transactions to see who's actually missed it. And if it's below 500, then it'll just count as a donation. But that doesn't mean the minimum contribution is 500. If you send 1 SPS but you have your memo, you'll still get 1 SPS worth of push tokens, which is approximately 500 push tokens right now.
Okay, very clear, crystal clear. And the BSC approach is even more simple because you don't need the memo because it's coming from your BSC wallet address.
Exactly right. Right.
So if you were to contribute to push token, this is the BSC approach. Contribute push token sacrifice to the push wallet. There's the address, and it's the only address they accept SPS on. And there's no need for a memo because you're gonna see it'll say your own wallet address, and that's that. When the push token is being dropped, you'll get your proportional amount based on the points you've earned. Correct?
Correct. That's right.
Cool. Interesting. Yeah. I'm excited to see what happens with this. It seems like there's a good number of people. Well, I mean, I've just watching on X, seems like people they're paying attention, I think. And so that's cool.
Absolutely. It's definitely coming along much better than initially anticipated. So I'm very excited to see how we'll go when we launch. I think it'll be a big event, but it won't be, the make or break. Even if our launch doesn't go incredibly well or something, it still means that with all of these gamification, with all of these buyback and burn, we didn't even touch on the scholar side of things. But basically, long story short, we have a scholar playing on our account, and 50% of that is given to the scholar, and 50% of the rewards is used to buy back and burn push tokens. It's not a lot. You don't get too much from playing, but it's something, and it's just more and more sources of burning push tokens, because we want people to basically believe believe in the token, and the more sources of burn, the more belief there is, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's why we're just working along to make sure that that's possible. We're also actually just behind the scenes trying to work out on some. I think at the very, very bottom of the document, you can the docs, you can see that we're talking about using the Discord room or other social media platforms as marketing. So the idea there is anyone can create a Twitter account for us. So DJ is the actual Dejota.
Yes.
I don't know if that's
yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I pronounced that right. He's actually created our Twitter, and he's basically been tweeting on there. Chris is the one who's been creating our Telegram, so he's been managing that. And the idea is that anyone can create these social platforms for the push token. And then if, let's say, one day we have some other entity that wants to advertise on us and they want to pay us, for example, if a Hive application wants to market on our Discord, right now I'm basically proposing we'll send out an announcement about you guys, and then for our invite for our invite links, every time someone joins our Discord, there's like a little welcome message. All of our welcome messages will basically say sponsored by so-and-so, and then we'll have a link to your application or have a link to your website or whatever. This will be a vetted process, but then the idea is that 50% of whatever they pay us will go to me because I'm the Discord, I created the Discord, and then 50% of that will go to buying back and burning push token. And then if someone wants to advertise on Telegram or if someone wants to advertise on the website, this will go to other people who are managing the website or the Telegram or the Twitter or whatever. And that's kind of, that's kind of just like a bit of a more long-term plan. I don't really see anyone really wanting to advertise on us anytime soon, given that we are very small. But that's kind of like an idea that, incentivizes people to help get on board the project and help create things of value. With the expectation that if this gets big, they will, get a personal benefit on top of helping the community, which I'm sure is a great feeling anyway by itself.
Yeah, man, this is exciting, and this is a fun Twitter follow, by the way. I'm just as you've been chatting, I'm looking at it's push and shove. So push shove token is the X account, and 30 posts by Dahota. At least that's how I pronounce it. Maybe I'm wrong about the pronunciation, but some really funny tweets in here, like this guy pushing and shoving to get on that slide, and this penguin having his way with his buddy here. But yeah, guys, I mean, I want to say really clearly that I'm going to throw a little SPS at this, but I'm going to throw, like, frankly, I never mess around with anything except for tokens that I've seen just have like a real longevity. And this feels like, I can't say that. I might be speaking to hundreds of people. I do not know that with this context. This is the first time I've ever touched something like this, but I'm interested enough to throw a little bit at it. To me, something that's not, a value that's not scary. And the truth is, everyone's going to have a different opinion of what that might look like. And so this is not a recommendation for you to buy tokens, but I'm interested. I actually am excited to see what will happen here. And there is a degree to which I have, just from like watching what Cryptoeater has done, and this is me talking to you too now, pal. Like it seems to me like you have acted in a way that I don't like that this system will require a degree of trust in the beginning. I do like that you have answers around how we'll get to a place where trust is no longer exactly needed, or your oversight is not needed. But that is a little barrier for me. But at the same time, you with the high fees you return on Aqualis, or how you've handled, conversations with the team, or, clearly the way you've been in this and supported this space, all that to me breeds a certain degree of confidence. And so that's where my heart's at with something like this. But this is I'm not recommending, but I am going to act on it. And I just want to thank you for your time, Cryptoeater, and for reaching out, and for also just sharing the excitement that I walk in for Splinterlands. Like the way I've seen you do People's Guild, I think 2 times, and you've come on here, you've talked to me before this. You're doing a lot. So thank you very much. And maybe before we go, what's the Discord? Oh yeah, I'm going to put the link in the description. But is it push and shove, or what's push and shove? And is there anywhere they can follow you, or do you have socials that they should know about?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I really do appreciate that sentiment and that degree of trust, because I do also have the same reservations for anything that I participate in personally, right? It's always that. I bought into Splinterlands from the very beginning because I liked Matt and aggroed, not necessarily because I liked a game where I could buy packs and literally do nothing else, because that's all it was, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's definitely it has to come from a degree of trust on who's actually has control at the start. But at the same time, I do want to also reinforce the notion that this is an experiment. I'm going to try my absolute best to make sure this works out, but there is by no means a guarantee that you can actually get any of your money back, right? You know, for all I know, I could lose my ledger tomorrow, or I could get hacked, or like, there's just so many uncertainties, you know, even if none of that happens, and then I just try my absolute best, but this just doesn't catch on, people keep selling, well, you know, then the token price is going to go down. Absolutely no guarantees you'll make money from this. I treat it as a bit of fun. I've also put in an amount that I don't mind losing all of. And that's, I think, that's a healthy mentality to go into this with. It's like, if you want a bit of risk, you know, if you're a bit of a degen, which I am sometimes, and you don't mind putting in a bit more, and for the, like, you know, because you might gain a lot, well, that's fine. But at the same time, I've personally put in an amount that I'm comfortable losing. Totally. If anybody asks me how much I should put in, I'll never give a recommendation, because then what if it does do really well and you come back and say, oh, I put in a tiny bit because of you. Well, you know, it's up to you. You know, it's a risk and reward, right? It's a risk reward trade-off. But yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on contribution. I'm more than happy for people to wait until we actually launch, more than happy for people to wait until we actually do multi-sig. Either way, just be comfortable with what you decide and never do anything that makes you like not sleep at night.
Totally.
Yeah, so, and in terms of my personal Twitter and stuff, yeah, I think I'm _Cryptoeater or Cryptoeater_, let me double check. Yeah, I'm _Cryptoeater on Twitter. And then, yeah, if you just go on _Cryptoeater, you will find me. You can, I guess, I'll send a link to Dwayne here on Discord. But yeah, you know, follow me on Twitter if you like. I only started using Twitter about 3 months ago, so my profile, I don't have a lot of posts, I don't have a lot of followers. So yeah, you know, like and subscribe and all that.
Yeah. Sincerely, thank you for taking the time, and I'm looking forward to this. It feels like it could be something fun. Now, does that mean it's gonna moon? I don't know, but I want to go along for the ride. So thanks for for your time. Thanks for all the feedback, and yeah, just appreciate you.
No worries at all. Thank you very much for having me, and yeah, I appreciate your content as well.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for your time and attention. I hope you're having an amazing day, and God bless. Bye for now.